Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. In this episode of Prison News, I'll be giving you a roundup of the headlines in the daily news today relating to crime and prison. Now for those of you that are new to my channel, I do topics on prison, also interview ex-prisoners who've turned their lives around, and this is a new addition to the channel which is Prison News, and I'll be giving a daily roundup of news in the prison, maybe around about 2 to 3 times per week. But I just want to say a massive thank you to all my subscribers for your continuing support and my latest Patreon members who are Douglas Johnson, Paul Thurgood and Paul Doherty. So thank you all for joining my Patreon channel. And if you are wanting to join me Patreon to gain exclusive access to different content which I don't put on YouTube, then click the link in the description. Or if you just want to support the channel so it can get bigger and better and I can do more things with the more finances that I get towards the channel to get different guests on as well for podcasts. But getting into it, the first one today is police officer who shot Chris Kaba charged with murder. So this is just come in today on my news app that I've got on my laptop. And it is the police officer who fatally shot Chris Kaba in South London has been charged with murder. Mr. Kaba, 24, was killed in Streatham Hill, South East London in September last year after the car he was driving was followed by an unmarked police car with no lights or sirens. He was shot with a single bullet in the Audi he was driving. Construction worker Mr. Kaba was months away from becoming a father when he died. Rosemary Ainsley from the CPS said, following a thorough review of the evidence provided by the Independent Office for Police Conduct, the CPS has authorised a charge of murder against a Metropolitan Police officer following the death of Chris Kaba. Mr. Kaba died on the 6th of September 2022 after he was struck by a single bullet in Streatham Hill, South London. The CPS reminds all concerned that criminal proceedings against the officer are active and that he has the right for a fair trial. It is extremely important there should be no reporting, commentary or sharing of information online which could in any way prejudice these proceedings. So what I'm sharing here is just what's on the BBC News website, so obviously that doesn't apply to me because I'm sharing what's already been shared, just to clarify that. So the CPS and IOPC have not publicly named the officer, as would be usual when an adult is charged with murder, because it is understood that the officer intends to make an application for anonymity at court. Mr. Kaba was followed by an unmarked police car with no lights or sirens on the day he died, while he was driving an Audi that did not belong to him. He drove into Kirkstall Gardens, a narrow residential street which was blocked by a marked patrol car, and the marksman fired once through the windscreen, hitting him on the head. It is rare for police officers to be charged with murder or manslaughter. So I'm not sure on what's happened in this case because it's the first time I've heard of it, and I haven't seen any reports on it last year when it did happen, or if I did, I can't remember it. But it seems, reading on this, that he's been followed in a car, which it's just said, with no lights on and no sirens. So according to the charity inquest, since 1990 there have been 1,869 deaths in or following police custody in England and Wales. Of those, there have been 12 cases where an officer has been charged with murder or manslaughter. There has only been one conviction of a police officer in that time, West Mercia Police Constable Benjamin Monk, who was jailed in 2021 for the manslaughter of former footballer Dalian Atkinson. Mr. Atkinson was tasered to the ground and kicked in the head in 2016. So this police officer here, it doesn't say whether he was remanded or not, but I know that in cases where you get charged with murder, there is no bail. It is straight to jail. So I'm assuming he'll have been remanded into custody, and with it being down in London, it'll be one of the local prisons. which is, if I can remember off the top of my head, I know Pentonville, and there's a couple of others, but he'll be in one of these prisons and he will be put straight onto protection, because when police officers go into prison, they get put on protection, and for obvious reasons, because especially if it's in London, this police officer would have come up against other criminals in the past, so they need to put them into protective custody, which is the VP wings. For those of you that are new to the channel, the VP wing stands for vulnerable prisoner, and the people that go into VPs are either sex offenders, police informers, or police officers, and people that feel as if they're going to be targeted whilst in prison, and they're then put onto the vulnerable prisoner wing for protection. But moving on to the next one, it is prison officer's car firebombed outside jail. A prison officer's car has been firebombed outside HMP Edinburgh, the latest in a series of similar incidents. Phil Fairley of the Scottish Prison Officers Association told BBC News he believes the attacks have been carried out by organised criminal gangs. Now, if you've been watching the news that I've been putting on lately, I put one on the other day talking about the organised crime gangs in the Scottish prison system, and it was talking about saying that they're getting out of hand and that there's more incidents being reported than there has been in the previous 30 years. So last week's incident follows similar fires outside HMP Addywell and HMP Perth. But before I go into this, I'm just going to say, when I was researching up on different things, when I heard about the firebomb, something popped up about a prison officer being shot outside of his home, and it was all to do with HMP Addywell. And when I typed in HMP Addywell into Google to research the news, it was a staggering amount of information on there just all around HMP Addywell. So what I'm going to do either tomorrow or Friday, obviously it's Wednesday today, so either tomorrow or Friday I'm going to do HMP Addywell prison news, because I've seen about 10 different incidents, a lot of them recently and a lot of them quite a few years back, but I'm going to do a special prison news just around HMP Addywell and talking about all the different things that have happened inside and outside of the prison. So far there have been no prosecutions in relation to the attacks. Mr. Fairley said there was nothing to link the incidents other than that they are each thought to have been carried out by criminal gangs in an effort to intimidate and threaten prison staff. The level of threat and intimidation that staff are facing is the worst I think I've seen in 30 odd years I've been involved in prisons. We've had another staff car targeted recently at Edinburgh Prison Car Park with petrol thrown over it and set on fire. It's probably the 7th or 8th example we've had across the estate in the last couple of years. Mr. Fairley said prison staff have been targeted if they intercept or disrupt the gang's criminal activity, or if they just fall out with them inside the prison. You get lots of threats working within prisons. You know them well enough to know how much weight and credence to give them. He went on to say, I think the organised crime gangs we are dealing with at the moment, staff know that some of those threats carry genuine risk, which they obviously will do, because organised crime gangs are built up of a gang of serious criminals. So you can imagine if a prison officer does something to them in the prison, or like it's just mentioned, if something's intercepted and they go out their way to do what they're supposed to do in the job, the inmates obviously don't take a liking to it. And organised crime gangs, as you can imagine, not all of them are in prison. They've got a lot of people on the outside, and all it takes is one phone call from inside the prison to get things like this done, which is, like it said, it's a regular thing up and down the prison estate, England, Ireland and Scotland and Wales. It's not just a random thing. Stuff like this is going on all the time, but it's not very often that it gets reported. So where was our up to? Police Scotland has launched an investigation after a car was set on fire outside HMP Perth on the 6th of July. and 6 vehicles were also destroyed at HMP Addiewell in January this year. The attacks are thought to be the rise of as more criminal gang members are being imprisoned, and Scotland is heading towards a record number of people in custody. In her annual report, the Chief Inspector for Scottish Prisons warned the number of inmates are likely to go above 8,000 in the coming year. Well, the number of prisoners in England is, I think England and Wales is actually round about 85,000. So it has led to concerns that prisons will become more overcrowded and there will not be enough staff to cope. That's why the need to build massive prisons and give people or prisoners a lot more space inside the prison, because I've mentioned previously, these prisons that are overcrowded, a lot of the time old Victorian ones as well, there's not enough staff to deal with them. Oh, 2 seconds, people, 2 seconds, sorry about this. Sorry about that, people, that was the Amazon man at the door. But I did say that there will be no edits in this. So if anything like that happens, I'll just be pausing the video. So getting back to it, like I was mentioning, a lot of these prisons that are overcrowded and they're like a powder keg waiting to go off because there's that many inmates, not enough staff, and it's causing chaos within the prison system. So common sense tells you to build more prisons and give more space. Otherwise, like I've mentioned, the prisons are going to get worse. There's going to be no rehabilitation and the prisoners are going to come out worse than what they went in. Mr. Fairley said that the firebombings may have played a role in recruitment issues. We couldn't pinpoint that or say for certain, but the turnover in the prison service is bigger than it used to be. We didn't have as many people leave as quick as they are at the moment. I don't know if some of that is whether we're getting recruitment wrong or whether they're coming in and levels of intimidation and the kind of environment they are working in aren't what they expected to find and they're leaving. A Scottish prison spokesman said, "We can confirm that an incident took place within the car park of HMP Edinburgh at around 11:40 on Thursday the 7th of September. Scottish and fire rescue were called and no injuries were sustained. Incidents of alleged criminality are reported to Police Scotland." So when it's saying there they can't pinpoint why there's such a big turnover within the prison estate with prison officers, well, again, common sense will probably tell you that it's a dangerous environment, there's not enough staff, and it's probably a lot to do with the staff wages, because I'm not quite sure on the actual wages, but I did look up on it a while back, and the wages weren't very significant for the job they have to do, for all the threats they take, the intimidation, and it does take a certain type of person to be in that job. And a lot of the time, like it's just said, a lot of them are in the wrong job, and that's why they're leaving, because some of them go in there with an attitude, which is the wrong way to be. If you're in that environment, if you're going in an environment full of violence, anger, animosity, and you're going in with the wrong attitude, then you're going to come unstuck from the prisoners, because a lot of them won't take that sort of behaviour from the officers, because they're obviously in there for violence, and if they feel as though the prison officers are trying to take the piss out of them, I'll say, couldn't think of another word, but if they think that, I know from experience by seeing it go on first hand, when some of the prison officers are trying to mug the prisoners off, and the prisoners retaliate in sometimes the only way that they know how to deal with issues. A lot of prisoners don't know how to deal with issues other than violence, and that's why a lot of the prison officers who are new to the job will be leaving as quick as they went in. So moving on, another one that popped up is 1,000 Met police officers suspended or on restricted duties. More than 1,000 Metropolitan Police officers are currently suspended or on restricted duties, the force has said, as it tries to root out rogue officers. The crackdown follows convictions of former officers David Carrick, a serial rapist, and murderer Wayne Couzens. The Met's Stuart Cundy said the number of affected officers was almost the size of a small police force, with 1 in 34 suspended or restricted. He warned that removing all corrupt officers could take years. In figures described as eye-watering, the Met, Britain's largest force, which employs 34,000 officers, also revealed in the past year 100 officers have been sacked for gross misconduct, up by 66% on the normal rate. The 201 officers currently suspended represent a rise from 69 in September 2002. 275 are awaiting gross misconduct hearing, a significant proportion of which involved alleged violence against women and girls, compared to 136 last year. The number of reports from the public and officers of alleged misconduct has doubled. Some 450 are also being investigated for historic allegations of sexual or domestic violence. Speaking to reporters at New Scotland Yard, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Cundy said that there were plans to hold around 30 misconduct hearings and 30 gross incompetence hearings each month, meaning that around 60 officers a month could face the sack. Now that is a staggering amount of officers that have been suspended, and this is going to take 1, 2 or more years to root out those who are corrupt, he said. There are also individuals who may have had false allegation, but they are always going to be small numbers. Figures released by the force show 183 officers are currently suspended, while 860 are on restricted duties. The Met has been shaken by a series of scandals in recent years and was subject to a blistering review by Baroness Casey earlier this year. But a positive that has come out of all of this, it shows that the police that are there to do the job are rooting out the corrupt officers, which is making it safer for the public when police officers are in a role to protect the public. And there's a lot, like I've mentioned here, going escaped and unnoticed and abusing their positions to go on to abuse the people that they're supposed to be caring about. Zoe Billingham, formerly Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, warned that the issue was likely to worsen before improving. These are eye-watering figures, she told BBC Radio 4's Today programme. But we also knew that the Metropolitan Police's commitment to rooting out corruption would mean that we would see, as members of the public, more cases coming forward, that the problem would get worse before it gets better. Ms Billingham suggested that the Met Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, had absolute no choice but to take the action, adding that the force's first priority should be restore trust. Officers said around 1 in 3 staff had been cleared out of the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command, the elite team in which Cousins and Carrick served. The unit, which guards sites including Parliament and embassies in London, is made up of around 1,000 officers, 3/4 of whom are armed. Baroness Casey singled out the unit for particular criticism in her review, describing an unhealthy culture in which offensive comments were seen as banter and supervision was minimal. Under new reforms, officers will not be able to remain in the squad indefinitely and will instead be rotated around to other parts of the Met every 8 years. Cousins was given a whole life sentence for the murder of Sarah Everard in 2021, while in February serial rapist David Carrick was handed 30 years for attacks carried out against a dozen women over 2 decades. Following Carrick's convictions, reviews were conducted of some 1,600 cases in which officers face allegations of domestic or sexual violence, but no action was taken from the last 10 years. So that's a staggering amount of officers under investigations. Investigations into 450 of those cases are ongoing. The force has also checked all officers against records on the Police National Computer, uncovering 11 cases which were subject to further assessment and 5 which are now gross misconduct investigations. Details of all Met employees, both civilian staff and police, were also checked against intelligence records. Sir Mark highlighted how independent legal tribunals can decide the Met has to retain officers even if the force wants to sack them. Last month, the Home Office announced that Chief Constables will also be given greater responsibilities to decide whether officers should be sacked, increasing their accountability for their forces, and will now chair independent misconduct panels. Now, everything I've just read there is a staggering amount of officers, and that is just the Met Police. So imagine all the other police forces up and down the country that is having to do these sort of investigations and root out all the corrupt coppers. Now, like I mentioned, the police officers are supposed to be in this role as a duty of care to protect the public, but you've got this minority that is abusing the positions and abusing the public that they're supposed to be supporting. But like I also mentioned, at least the actual police are doing these investigations and rooting out the ones that are abusing the trust. But that's 3 stories I've just covered there, people, in the prison news. And like I mentioned at the beginning, there is no edits in this one. And the reason why I'm doing it like this is because all the other videos that I do, even the ones that are 15-20 minutes long, they take around about 2 hours to edit, which at the moment, because I'm so busy with work and other things, I haven't got time. But I will be uploading these videos 2 to 3 times a week. But again, if you are enjoying the content, remember to like, comment and subscribe, because a staggering 70% of my viewers are still not subscribed to my channel. So if you can go down, double check, it's free to subscribe. Click that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and help me get to that 100,000 subscriber mark. I've set myself a target for this time next year to get to 100,000, but the way that my channel has been growing recently, I think I should smash that goal in a steady amount of time, because I've also just reached another milestone. My channel has had 10 million views since I started it, which is a massive achievement. But again, if you want to join me Patreon, click the link in the description to support the channel. But I'm going to leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you enjoyed that content. Enjoy the rest of your day, people, and take care.